Today, we're going to do something I haven't done in a while. I have a top 10 for you today. Today, I'm going to give you my top 10 submarine classes of history. There are many submarines built out there in the past and present, but these are the top 10 in my opinion. Then this list will be taking into account service length, power projection, fear factor, and overall innovation it took to build said submarine. Coming in at number 10 was the Sentoku class I-400 Japanese aircraft carrier submarine. It was commissioned in 1944. It had the ability to carry 3 two-seater Aki M6A1 float torpedo bombers, the largest subs commissioned at the time. They could circumnavigate the world 1.5 times, and with watertight compartment housing with 3 planes. The I-400 service length, though, was almost non-existent, only making it from January to May of 1945, basically 5 months. It was a potential war winner that was a day late and $1 short. Another failed attempt and strategy of the IJN to win World War II. The I-400 boasted a displacement of 6,500 long tons submerged. It was 400 feet long with a 39-foot beam, powered by 4 diesel engines producing 7,700 horsepower and an electric engine that would produce 2,400 horsepower. It had a very impressive range of 37,500 nautical miles. It had a test depth of 100 feet. It was armed with 8 533 millimeter torpedo tubes, 20 Type 9 torpedoes, and multiple AA gun emplacements along its body. This is number 10 on my list of top 10 submarines. And coming in at number 9 on my list is the baby of the group, the World War II X-Craft. The United Kingdom's midget submarine. This midget submarine of the United Kingdom's during World War II displaced 30 tons, was 51 feet long, had a 6-foot beam, driven by a Gardner 4LK 4-cylinder diesel engine, producing 40 horsepower at 800 RPM, had 1 electric motor producing 30 horsepower at 1,650 RPM, and had a speed of 6.5 knots. It had a max depth of 300 feet, and it carried 2 4,400-pound detachable Anatol charges. The X-Craft could mate with a full-size T-class submarine to be piggybacked to places it was needed, and it was used in certain areas and operations during World War II. An iconic representation of the United Kingdom's struggle to win and ability to adapt and use innovation to create something new. It is portrayed in movies, a legacy, the embodiment of the United Kingdom's will to win. And that is why it is number 9 on my list of top 10 subs of all time. Now, coming in at number 8 is the Russian behemoth, the Typhoon class nuclear strategic missile submarine. A Russian behemoth, the Soviet Union's answer for the Cold War. Built during the Cold War, it was a juggernaut of a sub. It produced as much displacement as the big gun battle wagon USS Alabama that now sits in Mobile Bay in Mobile, Alabama. The Typhoon class Project 941 Akula class nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine was a juggernaut, like I said. The largest submarine ever built. It was laid down in the shipyard near Archangel at the White Sea, boasting a very high stamina. This behemoth could stay at sea for 120 days or more. Its main role was to carry 20 RSM-52 intercontinental three-stage solid propellant ballistic missiles, but also had 4 630mm torpedo tubes and 2 533mm torpedo tubes. 22 tubes total, or 22 torpedoes also. It was commissioned in 1981, and its final decommissioning was in 2023. This monstrosity of a submarine boasted a 48,000 long-ton submerged displacement. It was 574 feet long with a 75-foot beam, powered by 2 OK-650 pressure water nuclear reactors, and had 2 geared turbines driving 2 shafts, producing 50,000 horsepower at each. It had a 22-knot top speed, could reach depths of 1,300 feet, and its armament was one 9K-38 IGLD SAM, 6 533mm tubes, 22 Type 53 torpedoes, and 20 RSM-52 SLBMSs. This was the big gun of the submarine world, and it had a long service life, featured during the Cold War between Soviet Union and the United States. But with the fall of the Soviet Union saw this particular sub's final days. And that is why it is no higher than 8 on my list. Now, number 7 was granddaddy damn near to them all. The Type 31 U-boat was Germany's World War I hunter killer, built by, I hope I don't butcher this, Germaniawerk, and built for the Kaiserlich Marine during World War I. They displaced 878 tons submerged with a length of 212 feet and a beam of 20 feet, powered by 2 1,850 PS diesel engines producing 1,825 shaft horsepower, and 2 1,200 PS Doppelmodem electric motors producing 1,184 shaft horsepower. Propulsion included 2 shafts on 2 propellers with an impressive 8,700 nautical mile range and a surface speed of 16.4 knots and a submerged speed of 9.7 knots. Had a max depth of 164 feet, and she was armed with 4 50-centimeter torpedo tubes, 16 torpedoes, and 1 or 2 8.8 centimeter SKIL 45 deck guns. These subs were apex predators of their time, and they sunk many gross tons of Allied shipping, almost crippling the Allies permanently for World War I. Tactics had to be changed to handle these hunter-killer Wolfpack Type 31 German U-boats. Number 6 on my list was full of innovation and also failures which helped to improve the submarine classes down the line. The George Washington class nuclear ballistic missile submarine, commissioned by the U.S. in 1959, it was the world's first sub of its kind, while also performing feats of its first time. Feats like it was the first Polaris missile launch pad in history. It patrolled the world's oceans, projecting the U.S.'s might well into the 1980s. Basically a skipjack class sub with an extra 130 feet of storage for the missiles and the nuclear power plant. For many years, this light pole slinger patrolled the world's oceans as the apex predator, nothing coming nowhere near it in power. With the ability to carry 16 Polaris missiles, its only counterpart for years was the Soviet Union's submarine that could only carry 3. The 5 subs in this class were part of the 41 for Freedom, built and operated during the Cold War. They were 381 feet long, had a submerged displacement of 6,709 long tons with a beam of 33 feet, powered by one S5W nuclear power plant, pushing 2 steam turbines that drove 1 shaft and producing 15,000 shaft horsepower with a speed of 22 knots and a almost unlimited range. It had a crush depth of 700 feet with an armament of 16 A1A3 Polaris missiles and 6 21-inch torpedo tubes with a multitude of torpedoes in its arsenal. These combined factors are the reason why the George Washington class nuclear ballistic missile submarine is number 6 on my list. Coming in at number 5 is another innovative sub that did have its problems that were fixed later down the line. The USS Nautilus, SSN 521, was the world's first nuclear-powered sub, and in 1950 became the first sub to complete a transit submerged under the North Pole. Her nuclear propulsion allowed the Nautilus to break many records, though quite a few limitations were found in its operation. Limitations that were corrected in later models. Decommissioned in 1980, the Nautilus became a U.S. landmark in 1982. Laid down by General Dynamics and commissioned in 1954, it displaced 3,533 surface long tons and 4,092 submerged long tons with a length of 320 feet, a 28-foot beam. It was powered by a STR nuclear reactor with 2 geared steam turboshafts producing 13,400 horsepower and a 26 mile per hour speed. It was armed with 6 torpedo tubes, an iconic submarine that is well deserving of its 5th place on my list. We're back to crumpets and tea for number 4. The T-class submarine built by the Royal Navy in the 1930s. It played a major role in World War II. The T-class was designed to rain multiple frontal salvos with longevity in mind, being able to stay in operations for longer periods of time. It had 11 main ballast tanks. The first T-class was commissioned in 1940. These subs saw many operations in many areas of battle around the world during World War II. The T-class displaced 1,560 submerged long tons or 1,290 long tons surface with a length of 276 feet, a 25-foot main beam. It is powered by twin diesel engines producing 1,250 horsepower and also had 2 electric motors producing 1,450 horsepower. It's boasting an 8,000 nautical mile range and with 6 bow torpedo tubes, 4 external torpedo tubes with 16 IQF 4-inch deck gun. The T-class did receive quite a few awards in World War II, being England's frontline sub during said battle. And its marking history is why the T-Class is number 4 on my all-time list of submarines. Number 3 on my list of submarines is the iconic World War II Gato-class sub built by Electric Boat Company for the U.S. Navy at Portsmouth Naval Yard, Main Island Naval Yard, and Maritime Shipbuilders. It was the U.S.'s frontline sub for World War II and the first mass-produced sub in history. Commissioned in 1941, it had a displacement of 1,549 long tons on the surface, 2,424 long tons submerged, had a length of 311 feet, a 27-foot beam, and 4 diesel engines driving electric generators, and it sported 2 126-cell Sargo batteries, 4 high-speed electric motors with reduction gears pushing 5,400 shaft horsepower surfaced and 2,740 shaft horsepower submerged. Had 21 knot surface speed and a 9 knot submerged speed. Had a range of 11,000 nautical miles, a test depth of 300 feet. It was armed with 10 21-inch torpedo tubes, 6 forward, 4 rear, had 24 torpedoes, had a 3-inch 50 cal deck gun, also had or could carry a 40mm Bofors and a 12mm Oerlikon. The Gato class was the scourge of the IJN, the Imperial Japanese Navy, and its associated merchant fleets, accounting for most of the tonnage sunk in the Pacific by the U.S. Considered fleet subs, they were an integral component in the U.S.'s victory over Japan in the Pacific, with its ability to form wolf packs and the innovations and skill and will of its captains and crew. These subs were war winners, as proven by history and the fate of World War II. Number 2 on my list is by far the most powerful on my list. This is not a city killer. This is a continent-cracking submarine. The Virginia-class nuclear attack submarine, the U.S.'s newest and most powerful nuclear-powered cruise missile attack sub, can cover a wide array of open ocean and littoral assignments for the U.S. Navy. Commissioned in 2004, this sub is state-of-the-art and very deadly. It can park its payload off of a city and they never know it. Be watching your shows, listening to you laugh, and it's sitting there ready to crack your country in half with its payload. This fish submerged displacement as a Block 4 was 7,900 tons submerged, and Block 5 it was 10,200 tons submerged. Length at Block 4 is 377 feet. At Block 5, 460 feet. Had a beam of 34 feet. Propulsion was one S9G nuclear reactor producing 280,000 horsepower, 2 steam turbines pushing 40,000 shaft horsepower to a single shaft, a propulsion jet propulsor. It had one secondary propulsion motor at producing speeds of 25 knots with a unlimited range due to what had to be supplied for the crew, the only thing making this particular fish have to leave the depths of the oceans. Its crush depth is well over 800 feet. Block 4 armament is 12 BLS tubes, 4 21-inch torpedo tubes, 25 torpedoes, and 12 missiles. The Block 5 had 28 Tomahawks, 12 BLS tubes. The Tomahawk BGM 109S had 65 torpedoes. This particular submarine, I should say, is projected to last well into 2060. It is going to be here for a while. One of the most powerful boats to ever sail the seas, on top or underneath. The Virginia class nuclear attack sub. Now, before we get to our number one, let's review the road we have taken to get here. Coming in at number 10 was the IJN Senkaku class I-400 Japanese submarine that had very little impact, but was an innovation for real. Number 9 saw the United Kingdom's midget of the submarine world, the X-Craft, with plenty of innovation and seeing action in World War II. It's an icon of the United Kingdom's history on the sea. Coming in at number 8 was Russia's behemoth, the Typhoon class nuclear strategic missile submarine, a monster of the seas who patrolled the oceans during the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States. Coming in at number 7 was the granddaddy of the submarine list, the Type 31 German U-boat, a World War II hunter killer that caused heavy destruction in World War I, but could not win the war. Coming in at number 6, the iconic George Washington class nuclear ballistic sub. The first of its kind, it was an innovation and led the way for future generations of subs. Coming in at number 5, another innovative sub that had lessons learned due to its limitations, but also had many records it set. This was the USS Nautilus, the first nuclear-powered sub, and the first to complete a complete transit submerged under the North Pole. An iconic U.S. sub. Number 4 on our list was the United Kingdom's T-class sub, built for the Royal Navy and a staple for the Royal Navy during World War II, making its contribution to be a war winner. Number 3 was the iconic Gato class sub, the scourge of the IJN, and the sub that helped cripple the Japanese Navy and the Japanese Empire in World War II. And finally, our number 2 sub is the most powerful sub to ever sail the seas, the Virginia class nuclear attack submarine, the U.S.'s newest and most powerful nuclear cruise missile platform, a statement of innovation and technology and stealth and sheer power. Now, the top spot coming in at number 1 on my list, and if you know anything about subs, I'm sure you guessed it, the Type 7 U-boat. Germany's World War II attack submarine that was devastating singly or in wolf packs. The most common sub of World War II for Germany, it had 703 of them produced. It was commissioned in 1939. They displaced 769 long tons, at a length of 220 feet, a 20-foot beam, powered by 2 supercharged, 6-cylinder, 4-cycle diesel engines, totaling 3,200 horsepower, with a speed of 17 knots on the surface and 7.6 knots submerged. With an 8,500 nautical mile range, that was pretty impressive. Its crush depth was an amazing 820 to 950 feet. It was armed with 5 53 centimeter torpedo tube, 14 torpedoes, one 8.8 centimeter SK C-35 naval gun with 220 rounds. These combined items was what propelled the Type 7 U-boat up to the top spot on my list. The amount of fear it projected and the sheer grip it had on supplies trying to reach England during especially the early stages of World War II ensures its place at the top spot. Though as devastating as the Type 7 was, as a hunter-killer, as an apex predator of the seas, it still could not change history or be a war winner. Tactics were changed and power was being projected by the Allies, making Hitler's U-boat fall on the back foot and lose its ground, thus Germany and its allies losing World War II. Thank you for joining me here. These are my top 10 submarine classes of all time. If you would, please hit like, subscribe, hit that noti bell, leave me a comment. I don't care what kind of comment, any comment is good. I would like to hear from you. My friends, the people that take the time to listen to me, I thank you. Us at CoolKegs thanks you. And until next time, this is Big Duke 6.